Hi, everybody. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here. We're just going to take a few more seconds to let people join, and then we'll get started. Feel free to write a hello or any comments in the chat as well as you're joining. You could even let us know where you're joining from. We're really grateful to have people joining us from all over. All right. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining us for another conversation in our Feminist Wins in a World on Fire series as part of the Inclusive Global Leadership Initiative at the Corbell School at the University of Denver. My name is Marie Berry, and I'm just delighted to be able to share this next hour with all of you. So thank you for taking the time out of your day. As everybody in this Zoom room knows, we are living through a period marked by war, displacement, democratic backsliding, attacks on human rights, and a deep sense of uncertainty about the future. Across many parts of the world, the institutions that people once relied on feel increasingly fragile, while those who are already marginalized are bearing the greatest burdens. And yet, that is never the whole story. Alongside hardship, there is extraordinary creativity. Alongside violence, there is care and resistance. Every day, people are building communities, protecting one another, imagining alternatives, and refusing to accept the world as it is must remain the world as it will be. My friend and collaborator, and one of the people who motivated this web series, Julia Zulver, oftentimes speaks about the idea of Malloy's weak hope, not the certainty that things will get better, nor a naive optimism that progress is inevitable, but really the decision to continue acting, creating, and organizing, even when the future feels uncertain. That idea resonates deeply with what the Argentine feminist thinker Veronica Gago calls potencia feminista, the collective power that emerges when people come together to care for one another, challenge injustice, and create new forms of life and politics. It is not simply resistance to what exists, but the capacity to build something fundamentally different and new. That is why this series exists. Feminist movements have long understood that even in moments of profound crisis, people are capable of generating new possibilities for dignity, justice, and freedom. They remind us that hope is something we make together. Today, we are fortunate to hear from three remarkable women whose work spans environmental justice, peace building, feminist organizing, and movement building. Their experiences remind us that even in a world on fire, people continue to cultivate courage, solidarity, and imagination. And these may be among our most important political resources. Each of our speakers today will chat and share stories from their own work and experiences for about 7 to 10 minutes. And I invite you to put any questions that you have for them into the chat. And with that, I'm delighted to introduce our very first speaker, Dani Assis, who's a Brazilian journalist, activist, and researcher whose work sits at the intersection of climate justice, culture, and gender. For more than a decade, she's worked alongside and with grassroots movements, civil society organizations, and progressive policymakers to craft narratives that inspire collective action. She currently leads communications from Amazônia de Pé, a nationwide movement working to protect public lands in the Amazon and advance Indigenous territorial rights. Dani brings a deep commitment to storytelling as a tool of resistance, transformation, and environmental justice. And I'm delighted to turn over the Zoom room to her now. Welcome, Dani.
Thank you, Marie. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Good afternoon from Brazil, where I'm speaking now. My name is Dani, as Marie introduced. I'm an activist, a journalist, and I truly believe that we can change the world through communications and culture. And I'm going to present you some of my work here, working especially in climate justice issues in Brazil and in the Amazon, in the Brazilian Amazon. It was interesting for me when I first saw the name of the webinar, because it makes me think about what it is about to be in a world on fire. Marie gave us some introduction. We are living in wars, and we're living in far right movements and governments all over the world. We've been seeing a lot of climate injustice all over the world as well. But I always have this quote of Greta Thunberg on my mind when I think about World on Fire, that she says that you should act like if your house is on fire, because it is. So whenever I have this image of the world on fire, I feel like my house is on fire, and I keep thinking, what would I do if my house was on fire? And if we should act, we should actually get together and do something. We're not just gonna watch the ashes and see it burn. So this happens in Brazil every year. Like literally, our house gets on fire on the dry season here, which is usually about on August or September. It's the moment of the year that everything gets super hot and super dry, and then the wildfires started happens in the whole country. In the biome where I come from, the Cerrado, in the midst of the country, those are natural wildfires, although they are fostered by agribusiness and illegal mining and all of this. But in the Amazon, those are not natural wildfires. There are no natural wildfires in the Amazon because it is a tropical, humid rainforest. So the fires that we see every year, even though it's not natural, they are criminal ones. They are fostered by land grabbers, by illegal mining, by people who want to forest the forest to have cattle and to have soy plantations, huge soy plantations for exportation here in Brazil. Those people, they are destroying the forest. Today we have almost 15% of the rainforest in Brazil that is completely destroyed. And this is driven mostly through capitalism and this economic interest. So it's very difficult when we every September, every August get through the fogs, get through the fires. We see our animals getting burned. We see our trees getting burned. We see our territory getting burned and the cultures that also build this territory burning with it. And we get hopeless. We get like, okay, so what do we do from now? How do we leave this world on fire? How do we see all these far right governments doing things that gets worsen the climate crisis here in Brazil? What can we do about it? And I think Marie has introduced it well. I feel like culture and community are our way out of it because the world we're living in, this is not a crisis, this is a complete collapse. And any capitalist solution is trying to manage the collapse and not actually create alternatives. So we're just working within the same system that took us to where we are right now. And I feel like the only way out to this collapse is a deep cultural transition. And it is through culture that we're gonna, as Marie perfectly said, strengthen our identities, promote encounters, allows this community support that makes us alive and makes us connect and makes us want to do things together. And also it's culture that fosters radical imagination. And I feel like radical imagination is something that we really need in this world of fire that we're living in right now. It reminds me of an African proverb, our sisters from Africa, that says that if you don't know where you're going, remember where you came from. And this is about ancestry, this is about culture, this is about being rooted in where we are and fighting for this territory, fighting for the continuity of our people. So I do believe that the only way out for this collapse that we're living is this cultural transition, is the transition of the way that we think, the way that we see the world, the way that you consume things, the way that we are living and inhabiting this planet. And this is precisely what Amazônia de Pé does in our work. Amazônia de Pé, so I can introduce you a little bit about it. It's a movement that was born in 2022. So this year we're completing 5 years old, a 5-year-old anniversary. And it began as a national campaign to collect signatures for a popular initiative bill. So we have this mechanism here in the Brazilian Constitution that allows Brazilian people, the population, to present bills to the National Congress, as long as you have 1.5 million physical signatures to present to the Congress. Then it's altered by the population and not by any parliamentary. So we've been doing this for all of these years because it's a task that is more difficult than it looks like. You have to actually go on the streets and talk to people, initiate dialogues about the Amazon, about the climate, about the cultures. And we see it more today as a mean than as the end, because this is a way to start dialogues with people. And we must do that in all 5 regions of the country because it's in the legislation. Like I cannot have only 1.5 million signatures from people in the Amazon. I need to have it from people for all over the country. And Brazil is a continental country, so we have over thousands of kilometers of territory here that we should be mobilizing and collecting signatures and talking to people and talking about the importance of the Amazon. We call it Amazonizing the country. And this is the cultural transition that we're talking about, because traditional peoples and communities in the Amazon, specifically here in Brazil, they've known it all along that we must have a cultural transition for what we're living right now. So what we do is just to amplify the voices and the demands and the ways of doing and expressing culture and politics that the people in the Amazon are doing. So now we are consolidated movements, and we mobilize for communications, education, culture, all for the protection of the Amazon and its culture. And for 5 years, we organized the Amazon Week. It happens in the Amazon Day in September 5th here all over Brazil, with hundreds of decentralized cultural activities in the territories on the week of this Amazon Day. And it's a way of mobilizing through different popular cultural languages and expressions, and talking to people through music, through dance, through movies, through poetry, and through everything that moves and touches our heart and creates these connections and allows these meetings to happen and these dialogues to start. And this is how we actually do this end work, that is just to little by little, step by step. We are talking about the importance of keeping our forest standing, of keeping our cultures alive, and of not letting it die with climate changes, with the decisions that our lawmakers are being to us. And last year, just to finish, because I feel like my time is almost over. Last year, we had this COP30 in Brazil. So for the first time, the Amazon was in the center of the political decisions and the international climate governance, because we had the largest conference that the UN holds about the climate change here in the country, and in Belém, which is a city in the heart of the Amazon. And it was a chance to Amazonize the world. So this is the work that we already do inside of Brazil to try to Amazonize Brazil and to do this cultural transitional thinking here among the citizens and our Brazilian sisters and brothers. And COP30 was a chance to Amazonize the world, because we would have leaders from all over the world coming to the heart of the Amazon and getting to know in local what were the problems that people were facing, because those are the first that are being hit by climate change, but also the solutions that are being constructed and built in the Amazonian territory, because those are the people who have been taking care of that land for so long and who knows the solutions for this. So it was a chance to show the world what we have been doing here in Brazil. And it was different because Brazilian civil society, and I would extend this for the whole Latin American region, we do want to participate. So we have a very participatory, social participation history here in the country when it comes to politics and to these big political events. So not everyone had credentials to go to the COP30 official UN spaces, but everyone participated in COP30 because civil society organizations had over 60 autonomous spaces organized all over the city of Belém during the conference, the 2 weeks of the conference. We had the largest march in the COP's history with over 70,000 people participated in the march. And we were decentralizing the climate debate throughout the whole city, because people were actually talking about the Amazon and its issues and its solutions and the climate and what they're feeling in their skin inside their territories, and inviting people who were in Belém for COP30 to actually come to the territories and listen from them and seeing what's like to be in the front line in these territories and in this fight. So this is what we do. We talk to people. It's simple as that. We just talk to people. We make people meet each other. We make people connect with each other through culture, through popular expressions, through things that move their identities, that move their ancestry. And this is how we believe that actually we can combat this word on fire that Marie brings, because there is nothing that is more power than our community and our power to be together and to create things and to imagine things. And I really do believe that when we are talking about defending the climate, we are also talking about defending all of these types of culture that keeps the forest standing as well, and all these traditional knowledges as well that already have the solution to fight this collapse that we've been living. And if I still have time, I really want to share a sentence from this quilombola person in Brazil. He passed away 2 years ago. He's a historical leader and intellectual. His name is Nego Bispo. And it reminds me because of the fire. It says, fire, They burned Palmares. Canudos was born. Fire. They burned Canudos. Caldeirões was born. Fire. They burned Caldeirões. Pau de Colher was born. Fire. They burned Pau de Colher. And so many other communities were born and will be born that it will exhaust them if they keep on burning. Because even if they burn their writing, they will not burn the oratory. Even if they burn the symbols, they will not burn the meanings. Even by burning our people, they will not burn the ancestry. So this is a reflection for us to tell the story through the stories of resistance and not through the narrative of the conquistors. And we still have many things to celebrate and to be referenced by in this Word on Fire. Thank you, Marie.
Thank you so much, Danny. That was beautiful. And I hope you can share the text of that quote that you just shared with us because it's very powerful and very on point for the conversation today. So thank you so much again for sharing. I'm delighted to introduce now our next speaker, Alouel Atem, a South Sudanese feminist peace builder, organizer, and storyteller whose work centers feminist community building, peace building, and collective care. She is the co-dreamer of Mamara Sakit Village, a feminist collective dedicated to storytelling, cultural preservation, economic justice, and intergenerational organizing for women and girls in South Sudan. Drawing on more than a decade of experience across grassroots, regional, and international spaces, Alouel's work explores how feminist organizing and collective leadership can help build more just, peaceful, and sustainable futures in conflict-affected societies. Alouel, thank you so much for being with us, and I will turn the stage over to you.
Thank you so much for having me, Marie, and thank you everyone for joining this evening, morning, or afternoon from all of the different parts of the world that you're joining from. My name is Alouel, and as Marie mentioned, I am a feminist peace builder and organizer from South Sudan. And I think these conversations are quite interesting for different reasons. I think for some of us, those who might be familiar or not familiar with South Sudan is a country that was born out of decades of war, and the hope of the country is not the reality we've lived since independence in 2011. We've continued to experience violence, we've continued to experience economic crisis, we've continued to deal with one humanitarian emergency after the other. And so the hope of the country was quashed before we even got a sense of what it means to have a country. And so for some of us, we have consistently built in the fire. And just maintaining the metaphor of fire, following Danielle, it's not just our generation that is building on fire or in fire. It is the generation of women that came before us. It has been our reality for as long as I can remember, and for as long as I have organized. And I think what particularly feels different right now for some of us that are building in these fires is the reality of what is happening around us. And so initially, we used to have the cold wind trying to cool us in the fires that we're building in. But right now, it does feel like every other part of the world is catching fires in different ways, whether it's authoritarianism, whether it's backlash, whether it's, the climate crisis that we're in right now. And so the difference for us is that the breezes that used to give us the solidarity are also coming in warm right now. And whether it's funding cuts, where a lot of the solidarity and support that we used to receive, whether through resources to be able to do the work, is feeling a bit different. So I think that is what really feels slightly different given the time that we're in right now and the kinds of futures that we're trying to build. And so at Mamara Circuit Village is a collective feminist community. I have a bit of cold just in case my voice cracks in and out. And it has been a collective that was also built from a very difficult place when we started in 2020. It was such a difficult year, and nothing has been different from that time to where we are now. And so in contexts like South Sudan, where civic space is extremely restricted and continues to shrink every day, where you're dealing with political uncertainty, where economic crisis and a huge dependency on humanitarian aid and assistance for a lot of people, the wins don't always look like a rival or in other parts of the world, that things that can be seen in the tangible sense of things. And so Mamarasakit Village, for us, feminist wins look different because even those wins in the context that we're in are extremely as radical as they can be. And one of the pieces of work that is giving me a lot of hope right now at the village is the work my colleague Eva Lopa is leading. Our generation of women and young women coming after us have also learned what it's like to be erased in real time. We've seen what happened to the generation of our mothers and the women that came before them, that felt like they needed to get to a place where the fire was off for them to document and write and tell their stories. And that just contributed to their erosion in real time. And so one of the things that is giving me a lot of hope right now is how we're continuing to refuse to be erased, especially in this moment, and continuing to do storytelling, to create platforms through Gender Talk 211, which is a narrative platform, a feminist platform, or the first of its kind in South Sudan, that is just really dedicated to documenting South Sudanese women's stories in real time and archiving and just building a living feminist archive, because we know what it's like to wait for the fires to go off before we can platform ourselves and document and tell our stories. So just to be able to document and create platform, and not just document and create platforms for women and girls to tell their stories, but to also move these stories and these narratives to national mainstream platforms that that center women's voices and give the country a perspective of the different ways women are contributing to the development of our country, contrary to the narrative that we hear around leadership and women's contribution, or the reducing of women's contribution to visible and high level women that are seen in high level public political spaces as those that are seen to only be contributing, but really shifting the narrative around the different ways women are leading and sustaining and carrying the country forward. And so I think to continue to be able to do that work through Gender Talk 211 is one of the things that gives me hope, and also just shows what is possible if we document in real time, and what it means to just continue to refuse to be erased or refuse to be distracted and be consumed to the point that we're not creating space to write and document and tell our stories in real time. Again, in a context like ours, isolation is very structural. And even for some of us who identify as feminists, who are doing feminist organizing work, it can be a very lonely journey. It can be a very lonely space to be in. And so continuing to build feminist communities through our feminist talking circles for young women, our Banat Siyasa program, which means Girls in Politics program, that does a lot of feminist consciousness work, and just really creating platforms where young women and girls are able to connect with each other. They're able to make sense of their reality, and leaving some of these spaces feeling like, oh, wow, I never thought about myself in this sense. I never thought about myself in this way, because we live in very heavily patriarchal context where the reality of who we are is constantly defined by others and shaped by the expectations of everybody else. And so to grow that community to over 300 young women and girls that are connecting with each other, that are hearing each other in their struggles, and feeling a sense of connectedness, a sense of togetherness, a sense of collective sense, is how you get to feminist communities and feminist life. Because a lot of the time we think these movements develop organically, they don't. And so really, what does it mean to do the work of investing in creating opportunities and platforms where these connections can happen, and really looking at the movement and organizing as a relational work that is really about investing in those relationships and networks. So that is really, for me, one of the pieces of work that is also giving me a lot of hope right now. And the other side of that piece of work, besides the young women and girls, is our Tukul Nuswan series. Tukul is like hats in South Sudanese Arabic. It's like women's hats, and it's a space and platform that hosts South Sudanese women that are leading, that are carrying the country economically, politically, socially, that are sustaining families. But these are women that would never be seen as leaders or recognized as leaders because they are not doing this work in formal settings. These are women that are leading community associations, are organized in community structures. These are women that are organized in their faith-based unions and networks. These are women that are organized in their market networks. These are women that are organized in the skills and savings group that bring them together. And really just being able to challenge how we define leadership, who is seen as a leader for these women, and creating spaces where they are able to see that I am a leader. I am not a beneficiary of programs. I am a political thinker. I am an actor. I am a storyteller. Just to be able to redefine how we think about leadership, how we think about women's organizing. Because again, in a context like ours, being a humanitarian context, there is a lot of approach where the work treats women as beneficiaries rather than political actors, rather than, individuals that are already doing all of the heavy lifting. And what does it mean to recognize and see that? And I think there has been a lot of shift for these groups of women. We do have a network of 85 women who are leading other associations and networks that have over 50 women within those networks that they lead, and being able to create those connections across the different divides and really trying to tackle the structural issue that isolates women and prevents them from building collective power is also a piece of work that we've been deeply invested in, that is giving me a lot of hope, and just seeing how that community is growing over time. And lastly, still connecting to that, is also just the realization or the recognition of what it also means to build inward. Again, in our context, we constantly think about movements and building as outwards and numbers, but for some of us that are carrying generational traumas, and for the women before us that whose traumas are layered, a lot of the time expansion also means being able to turn inward and really be in touch with ourselves and think about care and think about restorative justice and think about what it means to to treat the wounds that continue to grow and grow within the movement. And that is one piece of work that has been giving me a lot of hope, because we've spent the last 8 months just really designing and rethinking and really figuring out what it means to heal, to do work that is allowing us to return inward, to return to ourselves and grow from the inside outwards. So I think for me, like these three threads at the village right now are the pieces of work that are giving me a lot of hope. And the fact that we're continuing to do this despite the conditions that we're operating in country and around us is one thing that I think is worth mentioning, is worth highlighting. And for those that also feel like right now everything feels dark ahead, I think some of these conversations, even for us just listening to Danielle, are able to show us that actually people are continuing to build. So thank you so much, Marie, for the opportunity.
LOL, thank you so much for those beautiful and important comments. And I'm so grateful that you highlighted the importance of the internal work. And so many of the other things you mentioned, I think are resonate with a lot of the work that feminist activists coming out of places that have experienced so many layers of violence for so long are dealing with. And I think your particular work is just an inspiration and is a model of how to do this creatively and so impactfully. So thank you so much for sharing. Our final speaker today is Banan Abuzain Adine, a feminist activist and the co-founder and executive director of Takatawat. Her work focuses on feminist political organizing, knowledge production and exchange, and strengthening networks of solidarity across movements. Through her leadership, she works to cultivate critical, radical, and intersectional feminist spaces in Jordan and across the Swana region. Banan is deeply committed to building collaborative feminist infrastructures that enable collective learning, resistance, and transformative social change. And Banan is going to make her remarks in Arabic today. So please, everyone on the call, look to the bottom of your screen, and you should see a globe icon where you'll be able to select English if you'd like to continue to hear the translated version of Banan's remarks. And a special thanks to Dr. Amelia, who is here translating with us today. We're really grateful for making this accessible to Arabic speakers and to English speakers. So thank you so much. Banan, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Mary, and thank you, everyone. I will speak in Arabic as a part of our identity in our collective. So thank you for this organizing and everything. أهلا وسهلا فيكم جميعا. اسمي بنان سعاد أبو زين الدين، وأنا ناشطة نسوية وعضوة مؤسسة والمديرة التنفيذية لمجموعة تقاطعات النسوية. وتقاطعات معناها intersectionality. وسعيد كثير إني أكون موجودة هون لأحكي عن سياقنا الناطق بالعربية بمنطقة دول سوانا. لما هيك يعني تم التواصل معي للحديث اليوم، فكرت كثير عن شو بدي أحكي، وفكرت كيف ممكن يكون سياقنا عم يتم عرضه وهيك استعراضه استنادا ل قديش في تعقد وتضييق بالمساحات، وبنفس الوقت انه يكون عم ينعرض بمنظور نسوي. وشو يعني انه نكون عم نعرض قصص نجاحنا بهيك سياق صعب؟ انه يكون هذا العرض هو تحرري، غير مربوط بالرأسمالية، مقاوم للاستعمار والاحتلال، وكيف يكون تجاربنا هي مساحة للمقاومة والتنظيم النسوي التقاطعي. وبنفس الوقت كان حاضر كثير ببالي الأشياء اللي عم يمرق فيها شعبي وأهلي بالمجازر بالسويدة، اللي هو أني أصلا من السويدة من سوريا، واللي مجتمع السويدة تعرض لمجازر وعم يتعرض لتضييقات كثير كبيرة. وبنفس الشيء هذا عم بيصير بالساحل السوري، واللي بيتقاطع كمان مع كل الأشياء اللي عم بتصير بالمنطقة الناطقة بالعربية، المجازر والإبادة الجماعية بغزة، المجازر والجرائم الحرب بلبنان، بالسودان، باليمن، بليبيا. فقديش بده يكون هويتي الشخصية حاضرة بهذا اللقاء وعم بحكي عنها وعن تجربتي بتأسيس وبناء تقاطعات، وعن تقاطعية السياق وهيك تقارب القضايا. وهذا بينعكس من المنطلق العالمي لوين نحن موجودات، وبنفس الوقت بينعكس بتجربتنا الشخصية وبتجربتي الشخصية ببناء وتأسيس تقاطعات. بالنسبة إلي إنه نكون عم نحكي عن النجاح، أو شو يعني نجاح، وشو يعني إنه نكون عم نشارك هاي التجارب، يعني إنه نكون قادرين إنه نحول الألم والأسئلة والتجارب الشخصية لمعرفة جماعية. وهذا فعل سياسي بالنسبة لإلي. واليوم إني شارككم قصة تأسيس تقاطعات هو جزء من هذا الفعل السياسي الشخصي. الظلم اللي بيواقع علينا بوجود الاحتلال وبوجود الاستعمار، وكدول هيك الاستعمار ممتد ومتشرذم فيها، هو كثير صعب. وواقع إنه نكون نساء موجودات بهذا المجتمع وبهذا السياق كمان هو صعب. صعب من منطلق كيف إحنا ممكن نكون عم ننظم حالنا ونكون حاضرات ونكون موجودات ونكون عم نبني مفاهيمنا ونضالنا النسوي السياسي بشكل معمق وبشكل كثير كبير، وإنه نشوف تقاطعية القضايا بهاي السياقات المختلفة. ومن هون بحب هيك بلش من تجربتي الشخصية اللي مرتبطة مع المجازر اللي عم بتصير، ومرتبطة بنفس الوقت بسياقات مختلفة. لصرت أعرف عن حالي إنه أنا نسوية، مرقت بتجارب كثير صعبة. مرقت بتجارب مرتبطة بالخوف، بالغضب، بالشعور بالانتماء، وبنفس الوقت بالقيود على جسدي وعلى الواقع اللي إحنا موجودات فيه. على كل
Excuse me, please, I need to be reassigned. This is the translator, the Arabic translator. Carly, please, I need to be reassigned.
One moment.
Sorry, Banan, for this interruption.
Okay, it's okay. But let me know when I can continue, please.
But I think we just missed your last couple sentences. Milia, do
Okay.
you see that it's set up again?
So ميليا، بعيد آخر شي قلته. I need to repeat anything. Okay.
Milia, are you reassigned? Okay, do you want to try speaking really quickly? I think we're good to go. If you want to just backtrack a couple sentences, Bernard. Okay, thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
So ميليا بكمل. Okay. I heard you, Milia. So I will repeat the last two sentences. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you.
عذرا على هذا هيك الخطأ الفني اللي كنت عم بقوله، إنه بدي انطلق من الحكي عن تجربتي الشخصية واللي هي وصلتني لأني أعرف إنه أنا نسوية، وإنه كنت ضمن الحراك النسوي بالأردن وبالمنطقة. هذا الشيء انطلق من الشعور بالخوف، الشعور بالغضب، مشاهدتي وعيشي مع تجارب نساء مختلفة، الشعور بشو معنى أني أنا يكون بجسد امرأة وامرأة بهذا الحيز، كيف بنظر للاستعمار والاحتلال الواقع على اليومي تبعي، وكيف بفكر بالنجاة بالنسبة لإلي. وهذا اللي خلاني أشوف وأفهم إنه النجاة مستحيل تكون هي شيء فردي، ما بنجو إذا أنا بدي أنجو لحالي، وواعية على الامتيازات اللي عندي إياها، بس بنفس الوقت ما بقدر أكون عم بنجو لحالي. النجاة هو فعل جماعي، إذا ما كنا عم نفكر ببعضنا البعض، وإذا كنا موجودات لبعضنا البعض، فإحنا بنقدر ننجو. وهذا بفرجينا كمان شو فهمنا إنه نعيش بسياق، في واقع اقتصادي صعب، في واقع في سلطة، في منظومة أبوية بتتحكم بتجاربنا ووجودنا اليومي. افهم التغيير إنه هو نوقف عن إنه نسقط هاي الأشياء على تجاربنا الشخصية الفردية، ونشوفها كشي جماعي بيوقع علينا كنساء من هاي المنطقة، بالمقاومة اليومية، بالفعل اليومي، بتعقيدات السياق. وهذا خلاني إنه نفهم قديش مهم إنه نكون عم نبني معرفة نسوية باللغة العربية. وبلش من نادي قراءات نسوية بلشنا فيه أنا ورفيقة لإلي، وهذا النادي كان بيعتمد على إنه نطور معارفنا النسوية ببناء وبقراءات وبهيك مرجعيات من معارف مرتبطة بدول جنوب العالم، مرتبطة بلغتنا، مرتبطة بالحيز اللي إحنا موجودات فيه. ومن هون قدرنا نشوف قديش هذا الشيء مهم وكيف بيبني قدراتنا ومعرفتنا. بس بنفس الوقت إنه نكون منفصلات عن السياق هو شيء مش سهل، وهو شيء مش واقعي. فكنا شايفين قصص وجرائم قتل النساء اللي عم بتصير بالمنطقة، وهي كانت الشعلة لأنه نبلش نحكي عن جرائم قتل النساء اللي بتصير بشكل يومي بالأردن وبكل المنطقة وبكل العالم كمان، اللي بيتم وضع النساء فيها بمواقع المفعول به، واللي بيصير النساء بتدفع ثمن لوجودها، بتدفع ثمن لمقاومتها، بتدفع ثمن للرفض، بتدفع ثمن إنها تكون عم تختار التغيير بإنها تكون عم تنقتل. وللأسف المنظومة اللي إحنا موجودات فيها هي من أصعب المنظومات بدول جنوب العالم. لهيك في صعوبة بالتنظيم وصعوبة بالكلام، ولكن إحنا كمان استمرارية لحراك نسوي بالمنطقة عمره سنين وسنين. فمن هون بلشت فكرة تقاطعات، بلشت كيف ممكن نكون عم نفكر بشكل تقاطعي نستند فيها للإنتاج المعرفي وللعمل النسوي كأدوات للتغيير، أدوات لأنه نكون عم نشارك قصصنا الشخصية وقصصنا اليومية كمساحة للتعلم وفهم سياقاتنا وفهم واقعنا، من غير ما نكون عم نسقط على حالنا شو لازم نكون عم نعمل. من إنه نفهم شو يعني إنه نكون نساء بهاي المنطقة، وشو يعني إنه كل يوم ممكن نكون عم نتعرض للقتل بالحيز الخاص ببيوتنا، بأكثر الأماكن ممكن تكون آمنة، بس بنفس الوقت بالحيز العام بالشارع بوين ما كان أنا بكون موجودة أنا معرضة للقتل. بتعرض للقتل لأني امرأة، بتعرض للقتل لأني ناطقة بالعربية، بتعرض للقتل لأني بقاوم الاحتلال وبقاوم الاستعمار وبأشكال كثير مختلفة. بتعرض بالقتل لأنه ممكن يكون عم بنجب، وبالنسبة للاحتلال أن يكون عم يقتل امرأة حامل فهو عم يقتل شخصين، وهذا الشيء موجود بمنطقتنا. أني أتعرض للقتل لأنه أنا جزء من مجتمع بيحمل طائفة معينة، فهذا بيخليني أتعرض للقتل. هذا السياق اللي إحنا موجودات فيه، ووجودنا بتقاطعات بيخلي إنه المعارف هي مفتاح للتغيير، والمعارف كيف منفكر فيها من منطلق قصصنا اليومية وبنفس الوقت ترابط القضايا بالنسبة لنا. فهيك انبنت تقاطعات اليوم عمرها 5 سنين، وأنا عضوة مؤسسة فيها. بنينا تقاطعات على مستوى التنظيم الداخلي بشكل أن تكون مساحة لنقاوم فيها الرأسمالية، ونكون عم نشتغل بشكل تنظيمي متمرس بياخذ عدسة الاقتصاد وعدسة مناهضة الاستعمار كجزء، والتقاطعية كجزء أساسي من حراكنا ومن تنظيمنا. اليوم نحن بتقاطعات في عنا أكثر من 660 عضوة على مستوى المنطقة، وبنفس الوقت في عنا انتاجات معرفية باللغة العربية اللي بتأرخ وبتوثق سرديات النساء وبتوثق قصصنا وبتوثق تجاربنا، وبناخذ فيها النظرية من حيز النظري لحيز التغيير. ولهيك منطلع على الموضوع التقاطعي مش من منطلق جندري، منطلعه على تعدد الهويات، منطلعه على كيف منفكر بالمعارف وإنتاج المعارف من منظور مناهض للاستعمار. مين بينتج المعارف، ومين بيمتلك حق المعرفة، ومين بيمتلك الوصول لهاي المعارف، وقديش مهم إنه نكون عم نحكي بلغتنا وبلهجاتنا وبلكناتنا بطريقة نكون كلنا مشيوفات. مين بينشاف بالسياق ومين لا، مين عنده الأحقية إنه تكون قضيته أولوية ومين لا. وهذا اللي بنحاول نكسره بحراكنا، إنه نكون عم نحكي عن القضايا وعن تعددية الأولويات وأهميتها بشكل أفقي، بشكل تحرري، بشكل قادرين إنه نكون عم نكسر القواعد اللي حطتها المنظومة لإلنا، وبنفس الوقت نكون قادرات على التغيير. والتغيير مش من منطلق التمكين، لأنه إحنا واعيات على إنه التمكين هو مصطلح استعماري، مصطلح بحط علينا قوالب مثل ما هو شايف شو هو الأنسب لإلنا. ولكن إحنا نساء قادرات، عنا الأدوات، ومهم إنه نثمن أدواتنا وقصصنا وسردياتنا النسوية لنبني هاي المساحات ونبني هاي المعارف ونتشارك فيها على مستوى إقليمي وعلى مستوى محلي. فمن هون كيف احنا بنفكر بالمدارس النسوية، واللي هي جزء من مساحات بتخلق تقاطعات عابرة للحدود لنبني حراك نسوي. في من مارس الأختية، في من مارس المساءلة، في من مارس التنظيم، في من مارس تسييس عملنا النسوي، واللي هو جزء أساسي من كيف احنا بنفكر بالنسوية كحراك وكمنطقة. كيف بنفكر بهويتنا المتعددة وبهويتنا الوطنية كجزء متقاطع بيكسر هيمنة الاحتلال وبيكسر هيمنة الاستعمار. كيف احنا بنتشابه وبنختلف بنفس الوقت، وكيف احنا ممكن نكون بسياقات الحروب وبسياقات المختلفة عم نتنظم. وهو سؤال كثير صعب، لأنه بنفس الوقت اللي احنا عم نعلي صوتنا فيه وعم ننتج هاي المعارف عم ندفع أثمان كثير كبيرة. وهون مهم إنه نحكي عن موقعية الثمن اللي بتدفعه النساء اللي بتاخذ هذا الخيار، اللي بتاخذ إنها تعلي صوتها، مش بس إنها تنقتل، إنها تكون عم تتحارب، إنها تكون عم تنوصم، إنها تكون مش قادرة تكون عم بتعبر عن حالها بالطريقة اللي هي مناسبة لها، لأنه في سياقات جدا معقدة، ولأنه في نظرة تراتبية لواقع النساء اللي موجودات هون. فهذا الثمن كل يوم بندفعه، وبندفعه بشكل كثير كبير، وبندفعه كل ما علي صوتنا أكثر. كيف بنتعامل مع القوانين وبنتعامل مع الأدوات اللي حطتها المنظومة الأبوية على أجسادنا كنساء وعلى واقعنا اليومي. وين أهمية أنه نفكر بالتعليم كتحرر وكتحرر جمعي مرة ثانية، انه نكون عم نشتغل لاجل الجماعه، وانه يكون التغيير هو الاداه الاساسيه اللي احنا بنسعى لها. وهذا بيجي في اهميه التنظيم النسوي، واللي مهم انه نوعى على وين وصلت التقاطعات بعد 5 سنين. هذا بيعطينا حمل كثير كبير كيف بنكون عم نشتغل على مستوى التنظيم والرفاقيه مع مجموعات نسويه بالمنطقه الناطقه بالعربيه، كيف بنتشارك بالموارد، كيف بنعرف الموارد، كيف بنفكر بالاقتصاد النسوي، وكيف ممكن نخلق بدائل وأجندات بتتشابه وبتوائم احتياجاتنا كنساء بالمنطقة. واللي بدي هيك وقف عنده وكلنا نكون عم نفكر عنده، إنه بهذا العالم اللي إحنا موجودات فيه ولا مرة رح ننجو لحالنا، ولا مرة النجاة بتكون فردية. إذا ما كنت شايفة إنه الحراك بالبرازيل أو الحراك بجنوب السودان وأحقية الناس إنها تكون عم توصل للتحرر بشكل جمعي وبقضايا هني جزء من قضيتي، أنا ولا مرة قضيتي رح تكون موجودة. إذا كنت شايفة إنه النساء بسويدة عم بيتم اعتقالها واغتصابها وتوقيفها هو جزء من الحراك العالمي، فإحنا مش رح نقدر نتحرر. إذا ما كناش شايفين إنه إحنا بنقدر نتحرر من غير ما نكون، يعني إذا ما كانش مشروف التحرر من غير التحرر من الاحتلال كجزء من الاستعمار اللي متشرذم في دولنا، احنا مش رح نقدر نتحرر. وبنشوفه على صعيد مش بس الأرض، على صعيد الاقتصاد وعلى صعيد السياسي وعلى صعيد الأنظمة السياسية اللي موجودين فيها وعلى أصعدة مختلفة. فبدعوكم انكم تفكروا وين موقعيتكم اليوم من الاحتلال، وقديش هو عم بيأثر عليكم وعلى وجودكم وعلى كيانات اللي انتم موجودات فيها، لأنه هو مثل السرطان متشرذم وين ما كان، وإحنا جزء من هاي القضية وجزء من التحرر الجمعي. فكيف دورنا بهذا التحرر ممكن يكون وممكن إنه يستمر لنظلنا موجودات وصامدات ومتضامنات، والمعرفة هي بوصلتنا لأنه نمشي ونتحرك، وتكون هي الفعل الجمعي اللي بنقدر نقوم فيه معا.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Banan, and thank you so much. Just a deep gratitude also, and an acknowledgement of what you're living through right now, and of all of the violence and the systems of oppression that you mentioned, that are, as you said, seeping into people's daily lives in ways that are so harmful and hard. And thank you for being here with us today and for sharing a snapshot from a place and from a position that is undergoing, I think, for many people in the United States, really unfathomable levels of violence. And so grateful. May I take one question that we received in the chat and adapt it a little bit? And I just want to invite all three of our panelists to kind of close us out today with, yes, I'll invite you all back on screen. And I'd like to ask you just, a quick kind of 2 minutes or so reflection of, if we were to have this webinar in, say, 5 years, and the four of us would meet again, what would it look like to succeed and to achieve the work that you're doing today? What do you hope is different in 5 years? And what do you need to get there? What do you need to be able to do that work? And so I'll just invite you to potentially reflect on that. What a win would look like 5 years from now, maybe even further in the future, if that's more feels more resonant with you. And then what is something that you feel like you and your movements need to be able to succeed in that work that you're doing? Let's, Danny, if I could turn it to you first, then we can all stay on screen as we share.
Thank you. Awesome to hear from Banan and Aluel. I get so inspired by you. I'm a huge fan. Miss you, Banan. Banan was in my cohort in IGLI in 2022. Nice to see you again. Okay, so in 5 years, I feel like like I was saying, the cultural change, the cultural transition for me is the most important thing for us to actually get somewhere outside of the system that we're living out right now, because it is completely collapsed. We're seeing like a digital collapse, we're seeing economic collapse, we're seeing wars, we're seeing wildfires, we're seeing collapse in almost every aspect of our lives right now. And I really do feel that the only way out is that we start thinking differently, that we start imagining that we can create new forms of existing in this world. And I feel like this is a mentality also in countries that are living a post-colonial reality, that we often get our identities stolen from us, our culture and ancestry stolen from us. And we learn other languages, we learn other ways of living, we learn other ways of being economic productive. And I feel like the things that we need to do in the next 5 years is actually to come back and come back to our roots and come back to our traditional knowledges, come back to our popular culture, come back to our masters, to the people that actually teach us how we can be more in peace in this territory, with this land, in this world, with our community, with everyone that is around us. So I really do think that in 5 years from now, I want to be in a more offline world. I want to be in a world where we can actually connect with people because of who they are, because of how we feel with them, because of what we want to create together, and not because of money, not because of any of the things that the capitalist culture, the Western culture has taught us that are important for us. I feel like we really should be coming back to our roots and coming back to the things that actually nourish us and nourish our community and nourish our society. So I feel like we will be successful when most of the people will think like that. And this is my hope, and this is why we're doing all of that we're doing. And I was thinking a lot about Banan and Aluel when they were speaking, because there is this other intellectual here in Brazil, an indigenous intellectual. His name is Ailton Krenak. He has a book that is called Ideas to Postpone the End of the World. And it says basically that the most important idea is that we keep telling stories. As long as we tell one more story, we are postponing the end of the world. So as long as we're telling the stories of those that came before us, of we that are doing things right now, we're actually showing that there are resistance stories that are worth it, and there are ways out of what we're living right now. So I feel like let's keep telling stories, let's keep mobilizing, let's keep connecting with our culture, and we will have a bright future.
Thank you so much, Danny. Aluel?
Yeah, no, it's a very important question. I feel like the world is constantly evolving, and so there is no one way to say we will say this year we want to fix this, and then we realize 5 years from now these systems are very good at adapting and changing phase. And so for me, if we were to have this conversation 5 years from now, what would success feel like, is to look back and see that the investment in relationships is sustained. I think a lot of the work in my context is very project-based, is very service delivery-based, and it continues to deprive a lot of the women and girls of the agency that they have to shape their political future. So for me, if we were to have this 5 years from now, I would want to feel like the relationships, the connections, the community building piece of it is actually sustained. It's not just projects for 2 years, 5 years, and then we don't know what happened. But really, there is a sense of a collective community that has been built, that is sustained in a way that enables the intergenerational work that we're doing for us to see how it is being sustained. And that also means like leadership cessation, that the older women feel like, there are people coming behind us and they're picking up right where we've left. So I think for me, that is what success would look like. And what do I need, or what support would make that realistic or possible, is also just how the work is resourced. What does it mean to resource in ways that are invested in relationships, in people, not projects, not deliverables, not outputs? What does it really mean to resource feminist work even in humanitarian contexts, in ways that center people, that center relationship, that invest in the agency of the people, and really trusting that with that agency recognized and space created for, they can shape any future that they need. So I think for me, that is what would make it different. Like, what support are we getting that is not doing more harm, but really also pushing us to go further? I think for me that 5 years from now, I would be a little bit at peace if I can feel like the village is contributing to that work in South Sudan in one way or the other.
Well, I loved that you ended on the importance of relationships because some of you on the Zoom may have met Aluel when she came to IGLI back in 2019, and now we are co-hosting IGLI in Nairobi this August together. And so it's again a 7-year long project of again building relationships and thinking about how we kind of navigate and respond to the evolving dynamics in the world and move at the speed of trust to actually do the work that we think meets feminists' goals and needs in the world right now. So I think that was a beautiful way to put it. And Banan, let's turn it over to you to close us out. Thank you so much again.
أيوه. إنه نكون عم نفكر ب5 سنين لقدام هو وقت كثير قصير لنوعى يعني لنوعى على شو يعني تغيير وشو الأشياء اللي بدها تتغير، لأنه العمر الزمني للنضال وللتغيير هو ممكن يكون عم يحتاج مئات السنين. ومن هون بحب أحكي شوي عن كتاب الخيال النسوي، تم مشاركته بالشات معكم، وهذا الكتاب من الكتب القليلة اللي أو المنشورات القليلة للتقاطعات اللي تم ترجمتها للغة الإنجليزية، فبدعيكم إنكم تطلعوا عليه وتقرأوا وكمان ترجعوا لنا بأنتوا شو بتفكروا بهاي القضايا. وإحنا عم نشتغل بهذا الكتاب كان سؤالنا إنه إحنا كنسويات وضمن الحراك النسوي شو التغيير اللي بنسعى له وكيف بنسعى لهذا التغيير. فقدرنا إنه نعمل هذا المانيفستو النسوي بشو رؤيتنا للتغيير وشو العالم اللي بنتغيره بتعددية القضايا بحياتنا اليومية كنساء، بالبيئة، بالمنظومة القانونية، بالتحرر الجمعي، بشو يعني إنه نكون عم نتنظم، بشو مفهومنا للوقت. فهذا هيك يمكن بعد 100 سنة بس مهم إنه نكون عم نتشارك فيه ليكون هو تجربة جماعية وعم نبني فيها بشكل جماعي. من هون ل5 سنين بفكر إنه يكون منظومة الاحتلال تم التحرر منها وإسقاطها وتحرر الشعوب هو هيك الدافع الأساسي لإلنا، فإنه نكون قادرات على نكون موجودات كمجتمع نسوي متحرر، كنساء قادرات على الفعل والتغيير، إن تكون جرائم قتل النساء بأقل أو مش موجودة حتى، هو هذا اللي بنطمح له وبنتمناه. كيف نطلع على وجودنا كجزء من العالم في عنده الموارد الكبيرة وفي عنده الأدوات اللي قادر إنه يكون عم يستفيد منها، كيف إنه تكون هذا العالم ما فيهوش مجاعات، ما فيهوش قتل، إنه يكون خالي من الحروب. وهذا هيك يمكن يكون هدف كثير كبير بس على الأقل هذا اللي بنسعى له. على المستوى تقاطعات كمان بفكر إنه يكون في ناشطات نسويات غيري موجودات بتقاطعات واللي هني أصلا موجودات بس ما يكونش أنا اللي بظلني موجودة بهذا المكان. كيف يكون في منظومة حامية للنساء وقادرة أن تكون عم تتكفل بمواردنا بوجودنا بحياتنا ونكون قادرين أنه نستمتع ونعيش بمتعة كبيرة لأجسادنا ولحياتنا ويكون في حب وأمن وسلام، وهذا ما بيتحقق طالما في منظومة احتلال موجودة بدولنا.
Absolutely. Oh, Banan, thank you so much. And to kind of elevate and lift up all of the importance of relationships, of joy, of peace, of returning to source, of thinking about how do we again weave the webs that allow us to continue to do this work, because I continue to believe fiercely and firmly that there are more of us creating, building, loving, and caring in these moments than there are destroying and wreaking havoc and and creating these oppressive systems. And so the more we can find each other and weave that work together, I think the stronger we all are. So all of you who joined us today, thank you so much for taking the time. And thank you to all who've supported IGLI in our work and in continuing in this 10th year of our program at the University of Denver. We are grateful, and we're grateful for the remarkable women in our network, like all of you, Banan, Aluel, and Danny today. And have a peaceful and hopefully joyful rest of your week. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Danny, and everyone. I miss you so much, and I hope this is not the last space we can be together. Thank
Me
you.
too. We need to plan the reunion. Awesome. Thank you all, dears.
You all, yeah.
Bye.
Bye.